All right. Yeah, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second session this autumn of the Power Platform User Group in Iceland. Today we have a very good friend, Krzysztof Kania from Poland, and he is gonna tell us how we can increase the performance of our Canvas apps. So, Chris, first of all, thank you very much for offering to deliver this session for us today, and I will just hand over the reins to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. So today we will talk about Canvas apps, how we can actually supercharge our Canvas apps from performance perspective, and a few words of introduction from my side at the beginning. So I'm a Power Apps consultant at JIT team. You can follow me and catch me up on social media. You can scan the QR code. You will see some application that is gathering all the social media URLs over there. So you can add me on LinkedIn if there will be no time during this meeting, or you're too shy to ask on the call. You can always reach to me via message on LinkedIn, ask a question. I'll be happy to respond over there. So no pressure with the Q&A here. Okay, so we will talk about the performance optimization for Canvas apps. So what exactly will we go through is the point-by-point listed on the screen as the agenda is really important. So we'll follow a few basic steps. So actually we'll answer the question why we should create performant application. We're gonna go through things that are causing a lot of issues to developers, which is OnStart property, start screen, and OnVisible. We'll talk what is the pros and cons on each of them, how we can do stuff really, really well and performance efficient, and which things we should never do, or what are the Microsoft approach for stuff. Then we will deep dive to variables. We're gonna go through each possible type of variables in Canvas apps. So we will understand how to work with them, what are the differences, when we should utilize which one. We're gonna cover cross-screen references, name formulas, how they can change our performance of application. We're gonna go talk about some data and reusability, and at the end we go through the key takeaways, which will be actually really important because it will be like summarized session straight available for you. So let's proceed. So why we should create high performant application? This is really good question and important. So firstly, creating high performance applications ensures a good experience of application users, our end users, which is most likely our customer or our colleagues from the company if we are making internal tool. We want to ensure that they are really happy with that application. And being happy is not only a good UI, good UX, or the business scenario that is being solved in the quicker way. It is also this whole time, all the time feeling that they have. So if they have to wait too long, they will be frustrated. If they cannot see the data, they are clicking something and things are loading and loading, they will not be happy. So this is something that we want to work with because we want to reduce load times to increase the user experience, which enhances directly the productivity and end user satisfaction. And those efficiently created applications are not only good for our end users, for our customers, they are also really good for us. Because let me ask you a question. Who is supporting your applications after they are provided to your customer? Is that you? Are maybe your colleagues from the team, or maybe there's a separate team taking care of those, right? So if we will make sure that our application is written properly with the guidelines and it's really clear, we also enhance our support and maintenance team. The support is more scalable because we offer quicker resolution of potential issues or quicker change requests um, within the lower operational costs. Okay, so if we know why we should create them, let's start from the basics. So the basics are whenever you open application, what happens then? Then we have a property called OnStart. So this property is available to us whenever we open Canvas apps and select the app itself. And on the top, you can see the dropdown. On this dropdown, you can see OnStart property. What this property actually does, whatever you will put over there will be executed when application starts. What does it mean? It means that it is always executed first. Have you ever had this kind of application that is loading and loading and loading and it doesn't want to open? Or maybe you are opening the application as a developer and it's also loading and loading. And actually, what happens is that it is really typical scenario that there is plenty of code provided on start property. Collections are being gathered from the data sources. Variables are being initialized. We are creating a lot of scenarios that are actually not exactly necessary on the screen, because if we put too many actions, then it can significantly slow the opening time of our application. And what happens when the app opens too long? People might feel, oh, it doesn't open at all. Oh, I don't have a good experience of that application. So people are getting annoyed. And to be honest, annoyed customer it's unhappy customer. Let's be honest. We want to solve the issues before the issues comes to us. That's why we want to talk about OnStart property, how we should fix it. It's going to be covered just in a few seconds. Now, is it only me that doesn't want, who don't want to use OnStart property? Not exactly, no. It's not only my experience. It's not only what I think is not the best. If you could see at the settings on Canvas app, you can see that Microsoft directly is indicating that you have to be really careful and use app OnStart with caution. And they are alternatives, not to put everything over there. It's only loading times and other stuff. So Microsoft is saying, hey, are you sure you want to use app on start property? But most of the applications actually utilize it. So disabling this feature for all for Microsoft could have really big damages. So it's still there, but we can decide if we want to use it. So if we don't want to use on start, what are the alternatives? So let's start with them. What should we use if not that? So we have few possibilities. We have start screen property. We have OnVisible property, which is on screen level, and we have named formulas. The first and the last, start screen and named formulas, those two are available from the application level. OnVisible, it's per screen level. So let's start with the following, where I can find the start screen. It is also a metadata of our application. So we select the same place as we selected for start on start. We just look on this dropdown for start screen property. And over there, we can determine and we can write directly a logic for a code, or we can straight provide the name of our screen, which will be the main screen where application is opening. This is really crucial. So we can decide which screen will be first, and we can apply some logic to it. Now the question is how deep we can dive into that logic. And this is actually quite unfortunate. You can check if variables are applying something, not variables, but for example, parameters. You can use few of PowerFX functionalities over there. So it's not totally that you cannot do anything over there. But the main issue is that you are not allowed to use global variables. So if you define anything that is said, oh, check me if this value is true, then do something else. And based on that, we can proceed to the next screen, choose where we should go. It's not true. We cannot do this. Imagine we are providing an URL to our application where we want to open the app on a specific screen with filled in data. this is the place that we can do it, but we cannot utilize global variables over there. So be careful about it. The next thing that we can talk about is OnVisible. And OnVisible is not available per app level, but it's per screen. So it is each application, one application screen, one by one, when you can apply this logic. But why I am talking about OnVisible, it is something different than we spoke before. We spoke about which screen is first opened. We spoke what data are being taken when the application is opened. And this is just executing every time a screen is being opened. So what is going on? I just want to mark that we don't have to use it only, and we don't have to use this start screen on start property. We can change it and utilize OnVisible. So just be sure that this property is not executed only the first time. It's executed every time the screen opens, and each screen has its own property. And we should learn how to use it. And we should learn how we should use it. So if we combine OnStart approach, so which screen should be first, we can combine OnStart property. What do we have? We have a custom loading screen. We can create a custom loading screen. So what are the benefits on custom loading screen? So first of all, application opens really quickly. We don't have to wait that long as it's for up on start property. So if the application opens quickly, the user see the first screen, and we want the first screen to be our loading screen. Then we can make users wait 3 or 5 seconds, not too long nor not too short, for the user experience to be good. But then we can check the permissions. We can check who that person is, maybe which screen we should navigate them, maybe if some parameters were provided and we should get data from somewhere. This is a perfect place to do this. We are skipping the bottlenecks of application opening. And by the way, we can utilize the branding for our advantage. If it's internal application, we use our own branding and we can create it as we want. But for the customer, it is perfect. We are taking their approach for the loading screen, or we take their templates, and then we are making the connection. Now, whenever we are not going to the offices that more, the connection with employees sometimes is a little bit less than it used to be. So we can build it via employee experience by branding. So this is where we can also catch our user for SEC to be on employee level. So here is a really, really quick example how loading screen can look like. Of course, this is my advertisement picture for this event. But this is even that quickly. You can simply upload a picture from the brand book of a company, provide a loading spinner at the middle with information, please wait, loading, right? Provide a timer and let's set it to 3 or 5 seconds, or navigate whenever the logic is implemented. It's really beneficial for us. So as a conclusion, we can utilize OnStart property. We can select which screen we can start our application on. But to be honest, from my perspective, it is better to just create a custom loading screen telling users, hey, you're open this application. This is the name of the tool. You will be soon navigated. Please wait. We can provide some percentages, something like this, and build that connection with end users. 3-5 seconds, it's just enough that they will wait and we will get whatever we need. So this is perfect, in my honest opinion. So after we went through opening, let's go through the variables. So let's do a comparison of all three, because we want to know the difference to actually utilize it when we need to utilize them. So here you can see a table that is providing the description for three variable types that are available. We have global variables that are available all across the application on all screens. with declaration method of set function. We have local variables that are available on a single application screen with declaration method of update context function. We will go through that local variables also can be passed through different screens. Don't worry about it. And then there is a variable type that some people can one time. But to be honest, I like to call it temporary variables. And it's declared with function, with my honest experience is one of the best things that we've got in the Canvas apps for plenty of reasons. So let's go one by one. Here you got the example how you can initialize, wait, I need to move it. Okay, better. So how you can initialize a global variable based on example of connecting to Office 365 connector and asking for a manager of logged user. So if we will provide that variable as a global variable, it will be available across all application. It is available in each screen. It is stored within the application internal memory. But there are also a few disadvantages of that because once we initialize it, it will stay with us for quite a long time. We have to manage that. So if we will utilize everywhere global variables, we might have issue with memory allocation because please remember our users are not only utilizing applications on laptops. On laptop or PC, we can have 16, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and big memory allocation, so our application will work. But what about Android devices that are a few years old? Their operating cost for normal operations is quite bigger from RAM perspective. And actually, our application can get really, really slow if we store too much data on the device. So you have to think that through, is it really need to store everything globally available through the whole application, right? And the other issue from a different aspect, not memory allocation, but this is updating the variable. If we will update the variable, we have to follow the same structure of it. That would be the best scenario, right? But if we will, by mistake, update it with something different or in the wrong time, then functionality across all the screens in all application might fail. So we have to go through that really, really carefully. Next one is local variable. What is the difference? From initialization point of view, you can see that it's completely different. It's not set and how is it called? Not dot, but never mind. But here you can see we utilize update context and we get the same actually data. We ask for the manager of logged user, but this is available within the lifecycle of one screen. So as long as we are on the screen, we have that property. So this is really good because it's much lighter operation than global variable because of the memory allocation. It is not being stored all the time since we initialize it and get the data over there till application is being closed. It is stored only on this particular screen. If we change screens, this variable will not be available to us. If we'll go back, then we have to take care of having that variable. So it's really light for operation for the application. And it's not available through all screens, but we can pass it to another screen. It's not like this that it's only one screen ever. By default it is, but if we know how to manipulate the data in our application with PowerFX, we can achieve it. So here you got the example of providing the data to another screen. We want to get the manager in this screen one, and we want to navigate to home screen. So within the home screen, navigation function, we can say, hey, let's navigate with that variable. So whenever we go to the home screen, we will have that local variable available to us within the data from previous screen. And this is great. This is perfect. This is really easing up the life of performance. But we have to remember to do this. Set and global are much easier to proceed with. Now, my favorite, with function, temporary, one time variables, whatever we can call them. They utilize the with function. And what does it do? This variable actually lives only within scope. So it is not stored in the memory all the time. It's not available across all screens. It is not also available across the screen that we are working on. Not exactly, no. So it is available in that single place of application. And then it's not available for us. It's cleared from the memory. And cool thing is that we can put with inside with function. So we can put plenty of those temporary ones. So get the data from one place and then work with it in the second with and put it into another one. So when I was working with some time ago, it was that if you have a single instant of with function, then we could refer to it as a local variable. It was still available in the same screen, but recently that's changed. It's not available anymore. Maybe that was a bug that I experienced, but it was working like this. If we put with inside with, the second one was not available through the application screen that we are working on. But the cool thing is that we can provide with actually inside a label. We do not need to push a button. We don't need to open a screen to trigger the action to show it. We can assign it to label, where we can provide a text, as you can see, approval sent to, and get the manager name for that person, for our scenario, right? So this actually is great, because this will be available whenever we open a screen in this particular, for example, label, and then it will not be available anymore. So that's really, really great. And we should proceed with that whenever we can. And it's also great for filtering data. We can get one part of the data and do some manipulation. And then we can proceed with the second with, and then do the manipulation of the data. And then at the end, we just left with this particular selected data that we want. Within with functions, we can also do error handling. We can do patch, so we can push data to data source after that filtering or whatever we want to do. So it is really powerful tool, powerful function that if you're not familiar with, I strongly encourage you to dive deep inside with function and become a master of it. It will really ease up your life and empower your application from efficiency perspective.
Yeah,
So
I just
yeah,
on the width just emphasize how powerful it is. Chris and John, they did a demo on this, how it works and how it just quadruples almost the performance when you if you are
yeah.
selecting, you have like the manager stuff and finding users. So if you have a selection that depends on another selection, etc., then
Yes.
using the with function is just an absolute must from performance perspective. It just
Yes.
speeds up
Yes.
things so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, please look up that session. So
If you are interested how With can improve your functionality, the most important thing you have to know is that With is accessible only inside this With. After you go
yes,
after the bracket, it's gone. It doesn't have any impact on the memory allocation. It doesn't have
yeah,
any performance impact. It's calculated whenever you need it to be calculated by action or inside a label, for example, and then you have the things done immediately, and then it's over. It's not stored anywhere taking our memory. So for sure, go and check out the session from 2 weeks ago, because there is also plenty of cool stuff, not only about OnVisible, but on hidden, another property whenever you are not showing the screen. This is also really important from the
yeah,
performance perspective.
yes,
Okay,
exactly.
let's proceed to cross-screen reference. So this is perfect, actually. So why we should avoid cross-screen reference and when it happens? And what it is actually. So cross-reference screen is whenever we have more than one available screen in our application. And most likely what we do, we copy a screen or duplicate a screen, and or maybe we copy a screen and then we copy a controls to another screen. Like we did really cool UI, UX, or this button looks really good. We just want to take it from one screen, put it in another one, and it will be great. The issue is that those controls can start referencing to a different screen. So screen 2 is asking something for screen 1. So our manager, which is our example, is displayed on screen ABC, right? And we copied something and put it in on the screen, home screen, for example, or XYZ screen. And it will show this value, but it will ask for that value for a different screen. And what happens if that scenario is live? And this is actually really, really bad, because the whole screen, the speaker screen or whatever, uh, will be loaded in the memory. It will be stored in the memory. So it would be like we would have two screens open. Then the logic somewhere has to execute on the second screen. So there is plenty of actions taken in the background that we as users in this scenario might not think about. If the application is really simple, like this example, simple, two labels each screen, it's not a big thing, but whenever you're starting having a more complex scenarios, having a forms, having some logic to show, hide stuff, it is an issue. It is an issue, and we want to not go with that issue. We want to skip it. We want to avoid it. It's really, really bad for our performance. Okay. And next, one of my favorite topics, it's named formulas. Named formulas came to us last year, I believe, something like this. And they are from originally from Excel, from Microsoft Word. So you could provide a name to a cell and then reference into it. So here is something similar. So let's start with named formulas, where we can find them. Named formulas are available to us from application level. You select this application part and you go to the same drop down. You're looking for start screen and on visible. We got also formulas over there. And on the left, on the right side, on the FX side, then you can write your code. So a few things about named formulas. So named formulas in comparison to global variables doesn't have to be initialized on action. Regular variables or collections, it needs to go through selecting of patterns. Some kind of a logic has to be triggered to get it, to implement it. Screen be visible, screen be hidden, navigation, selecting of a button. Named formulas are different. Named formulas are put into one place. And application takes care for us on when that formula needs to be available. So we do not say, hey, when you click it, you have it. No, 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 no. It's available for us wherever it's needed. So there is no timing dependency. We don't have to wait for that. No app OnStart must run before this will be available for us. They are powerful because of the single place you implement them. It is really easy to govern. It is really easy to provide changes to. Just really easy to fix potential bug, because as you can see here, it's a single place. You define one after another formula. Now, they are always up to date. We don't have to take care of updating the value. The data will be updated whenever there is a need to be updated. We don't take care of that. It is automatically done by the application in the backend. So this is really, really good, right? And as they are in this one place, and we are not setting them inside the application on actions, we cannot update them. This can be an issue, but we cannot update them. But it's a single source of truth whenever we can find them. So those places where you initialize them cannot be overwritten with a new data. So if you need something that can be updated, then it's better to provide irregular variables and then decide which one of local, global, or temporary you need, or maybe you need a collection, a table, something like this. But you need to know that there are formulas that are really quick, really easy. And the great thing is that they are available when needed. So this is so cool. And great thing is that they can be cross-reference. So for example, here at the user.name, we can utilize that, or maybe colors would be better. So we defined an object called colors with item black, and its definition is set to its color to be black. Now we could create another one to say like color definition, where we state, oh, we want a border of a label or the input to be black. So we can create a new formula that would say, hey, take it from nf colors dot black, and we can cross-reference them. So this is really powerful approach, because it doesn't matter which one is first or second, we can still do it, and it will still automatically calculate it for us. And for variables, we have to take care of the order. This is also really important. The order of initialization matters. So why named formulas are so cool? They do not delay our start time. So our first point of this presentation. So it's great. Application opens faster. Let's assume we already have a loading screen. On this loading screen, you can also utilize named formulas. That's great. They are really light to perform because they don't take memory if not needed. Oh, that's really great, right? We don't have to think if we need to clear them. No, that's great. We don't need to think when we need to initialize it to become alive, to actually show the data somewhere in the application. We don't have to do this. That's great. We go out of the screen, it's gone. They are really easy to perform from the performance perspective, but also from development perspective. A lot of things is taken out of our hands and provided to the application itself, as they are defined in one single place. They are really, really easy to be optimized. You get single source of truth. Just click on App, navigate to Formulas from the drop-down, and you will have all section over there. If you have listed one after another, you can just use your scroll and see which one is which one. That's so great. The order of initialization does not matter, as I mentioned. We can define it in whatever order we want, and the application will get it for us. So we can reference each other. That's amazing, powerful tool that we can proceed with. That's so great. And while we talk about the possibilities of cross-referencing between variables and the data, and that something can be initialized with the reference in different order, let's talk about the concurrent. Let's talk how actually the order look like of getting the data in Power Apps. So out of the box, data are not being executed at the same time, which is also the case at the name formulas. They are pretty much executed at the same time. But there is a function that allows us to go with that execution at the same time. It's called concurrent. So getting data at the same time is much quicker than going to get the data one after another. And this one after another sequential load, it is out of the box feature on Canvas apps. So let's take a look how it actually looks like. We want to take a data set 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, set some variables. Let's say it's global variables. So we can have a lot of those stuff, and we can even put them into OnStart property. So our application will be loading quite slowly, right? But the logic is in the sequential load, you get the first one, the first line of code, then you get the second, the third, the fourth, whatever logic you will provide over there. So it's not bad, it's quite good, but there is also an issue. What happens if the data set 1 will not be taken properly? There would be some error. There we got an issue because we don't get that data. We have to think about that approach also. But if we use concurrent, we can get that data pretty much at the same time. So the actions are executed quite at the same time. not exactly, but quite at the same time, but there are a few issues about it. If we want to simultaneously process multiple actions, we have to be aware that we cannot proceed with the same data sources or the same variables at the same concurrent function. So let me show you how concurrent looks like comparing to out-of-the-box approach. On the left, you can see out-of-the-box, sequential code execution. You set the value, you get the data from the data source, one after another. So we have to ask the server to get something, get that data back, set it to the variable, close the connection, go to clear collect, which is getting a table of data with the name of certifications. Then we also have to make a call to the data source to get it. And after we get it, then we can proceed to the next step. And it can take a time. And our users don't always want to wait. So whenever we can, I suggest to split this into threads, so into parts that we can work at the same time. So let's use concurrent. We don't use semicolon between, which is out of the box saying in Canvas app, if you finish this one, do this one, right? What we do is we provide a concurrent function, and inside the brackets we say, do this, comma, do this at the same time, and then comma, do another, do another. And we cannot work on the same data sources. Please remember that. Here you got example from Microsoft documentation. What is the time differences from their testing from between out of the box and concurrent? So this is, as you can see, it's quite big because the time, it's twice, at least twice. We don't have the scale of the time, but seems like twice, right? Maybe the product data source took longer time at the comparison, but different took less, even though that they can work a little bit longer rather than single call, that if we will compare longer query, but at the same time, the response can be much, much quicker. So the data will be visible to a user much, much quicker. So this is really good. We just need to know how to work with it. So how can we check if we gain anything within the concurrent, or how long it takes to get our data? For that, I would recommend to go and use network traffic as developer tools from the browser that we are utilizing, or we can provide Power-Ups monitor, open it and test it, and it's available to us as developers. It's straight from Microsoft. And there we can test our performance. We can check function by clicking on the app and looking what's happening in the background. So if we know that we can take data quicker, maybe let's ask how we should store that data and talk about it. So if we need something quite often, for example, our manager, we are creating an application for approval of pay raise. Let's say it's pay raise, right? Then our manager will be the first line of approval. So you always need to have that manager somewhere. So let's say that manager is really frequently used variable, frequently used data in our application. So we can store that in variable. If we need more data, we can store it in collection. But we need to decide what we really need. There is no point of taking few thousand items to the application if there is no need for that. We need to think if the business process really needs that kind of data. Maybe there would be some really good filtering to get the data that we can apply. But we want to limit the data to what is actually needed. And sometimes, and that's really often, it's our job as developers to do so, to decide what is needed and how we should get that data for what is really needed. So what are the available functions for us to limit that data? So we can filter up. So this is for many rows. And we can create a lookup, get a lookup function for a single row. So actually, if we will write our query properly, we can even delegate to the server side this question. Hey, I want to get all Microsoft certifications for my employee company. And if that will be done properly, for example, on the SharePoint level, then we can even get directly filtered data from SharePoint. We don't have to filter them inside the application. We don't have to get everything and filter it inside. So we can also think about properly getting the data from the data source. If we only need one row, we can always also limit it by filter, but it's better to use lookup. It's also a different way how we work on the item. Show columns and drop columns are responsible to limit amount of columns we are getting from the data source. Do we really need in our application for 50 columns? Maybe we need only 5. And if we need only 5, it's better to use show columns because we define, hey, show me only those 5. But if we need 25 out of 30, then we can say, hey, get rid of those 5 and list those 5 with drop columns. So this is powerful functions that we can utilize to actually store whatever is needed for the process. Because the data that is stored in memory can be stored really quickly. But please bear in mind that if we will store a lot of that data, we are not clearing that data. We have too many variables, too many collections. Our application can be slowing down. Our application can start getting buggy. Our application might not want to cooperate as we imagine it to cooperate. So it is our responsibility to understand what is needed to be in application, what can be directly taken from the data source, and when. We have to think that through, especially if we are working on bigger scenarios. So if we went through the data perspective, now let's focus on reusability in our application. There are few stuff that we can utilize to actually reusable, to make things reusable in our applications. So I really recommend to create reusable code and reusable interface. So how we can achieve that? We can achieve it by utilizing components and user-defined functions. So what is component? Components are reusable building blocks in our Canvas applications that we as developers, as makers, we can utilize to create a custom visual that will be available through all our application, across whole application. We can always also, on top of it, we can create a component library, which is like a different application which can share logic for different applications. So we can get some template of data, of logic, of UI even to our application. So those components can be really advanced and can be really simple. But the most important one, if we will make it once, it will stay with us. Once it will be initialized, and then we can reuse it. So there is only one action, let's call it one action needed, actually for that to be available for us. So once the UI is loaded, for example, for header, we can use it across 10 screens. And then we only using the amount of controls once. And it's reusable plenty of times. Like 2 weeks ago, guys, Chris and Jon also were mentioning about this reusability stuff, that this is really important because amount of actions matter, amount of buttons in application matters, right? So we can create really advanced components, but also really, really simple. We just need to be sure we want to utilize them and how we want to utilize them. They are, once again, reusable from UI perspective. This is one thing. And this UI is really great because the performance is increasing in our application. One UI used plenty of times in plenty of places, but one loading time. We can build it as responsive, but out of the box, Canvas apps are not responsive. We need to remember to provide access to the data for application if we want the component to work with application data. And we can create reusable code over there on top of it, provide functions, events. So components are great. So let's list what are the most utilized components across applications, not only in Canvas apps, but generally in SaaS. But first, please remember to provide this access app scope if you want to work with the data. So frequently used components from UI perspective are headers, footers, sidebar navigation, pop-ups, confirmation box. Confirmation box actually can be also a pop-up. But imagine you have 10 pages, 10 screens of your application. You create a header on each application. So you can have easily like 10 items on each screen, just a header. And then imagine that the end user comes and say, hey, we need to make a change on that. You say, okay. And then you have to manually do the change in 10 screens. And it's like, ooh, that's not good. If we will be using component and create one component, every change will be implemented in all the screens that this component is being visible, is being executed, is being added. So we are reducing the maintenance. We are reducing the time of development for change request. We are increasing the performance. We are reducing the time of development from scratch because we are creating one component and reusable everywhere. This is really powerful, really, really, really powerful. And we should not forget, reusability is a key for performance. And that's why we go back to formulas. Formulas are also one change will be applied in whole application, right? They are initialized once whenever they are needed. That's so great. But inside named formulas, we already went through that. So inside named formulas, they are something called user-defined functions. And this is powerful because we can create a reusable function that we can call from whatever place in application we want to calculate something, for example, date difference. But it is still experimental feature. I can see it being used in the production, but I even checked that yesterday. It is still as experimental feature, and we have to turn it on. Formulas are general availability. User-defined functions inside formulas are still to be rolled out to GA. So you have to go to settings, search for user-defined functions, and turn that on. What it will give us? It will give us this reusable code to do something. Here you got a simple example about multiplying the numbers. You defined the function name. You define the input names of the parameters and the type of the parameter, and then the output of the parameter. And then it will actually equal your formula what you want to calculate. So this is really basic example actually from the documentation, but what I've on top of that did is I've created a date time difference calculation to provide us a text value about the duration. So we provide a date between let's say Nordic Summit. How many days, hours and minutes actually ago we had Nordic Summit event, the keynote. So we could provide there this value, date and time of starting keynote and the current value. And then this function can calculate for us how many minutes it take, because we know that calculating date differences sucks. If you do this in days, it's working in calendar days. Even if the hours doesn't match 24, you will see 1 day. So this is bad. So that's why I've created it. I've go from minutes, checking if we go into days, and then we can calculate it by that. So then you can use it across all application. You just say, hey, multiple numbers. I'll provide their boom, first value 2, second number 5. As output, I want number. So what we will get based on that formula is 2 times 5 is 10, and I'll get 10. Or I will get 1 month or something like this from Nordic Summit keynote. But it will be reusable. I don't have to create that function on another screen again and again and again. And about those again and again and again, every time you create a Canvas app, or you are creating one big Canvas app. It's really important to understand what features you have turned on, because they are changing. New features in settings are being provided to us quite often. We have to keep track on them. We might have an old application being created sometimes ago, and those settings might differ a little bit rather than from that one created today, right? So there are a few settings that are really important to know um, if we are talking about performance. Even though I say the quicker the data is being taken, I really like to get the experience for the user. That user, if they have to wait for the data, they will see loading screen. So we want to make sure that in our, for example, 10 inputs or galleries, we'll provide delay loads. We don't want to keep recently visited screens in memory to improve navigation performance if we have many data, because it would be like in the example of cross-reference. The screens will be all the time available from the memory perspective. It's taking the resources that we want to be allocated for the user to work on the app. Yes, so always check your settings, check what is turned on, turned off, etc., and work based on that. So be aware what you have over there. And now let's go through key takeaways. How much time do we have? Oh, we're almost done with the time. That's quite good. Yeah, quite the timing. So as takeaways, reduce code on application OnStart property, or even don't use it. Simply, you can create a custom loading screen. You can utilize your customer UI UX branding template to make the application more connective with the company. It will have a major impact, and you can believe me, it will have a great impact for customers, because they will see that you want to follow their design and not PowerUp's design, they design, and the users will be more into company branding. Now, if we already know about the custom loading screen, then we have to know when to use global and local variables. Is it really needed to be available everywhere? Maybe we need a collection that is like a global variable also, but for a table, available everywhere, right? So think if we need a variable, if we need a collection, and is it a local or global variable? When we will use the data? Or maybe it's just temporary variable. Maybe we have to just calculate something, show it or push it somewhere, end of the story, kill it. Don't take care of it, right? Don't reference other screens. Be always sure whenever you copy anything that the properties are not referring somewhere else. Okay? They can reference named formula, for example, for this border color. They can, it's fine, right? Because this will be created once in the application, the named formula, and then reused everywhere, and that's perfect, right? But reference to a different control, it's bad. Think about your data. Do you need to load that data really one after another as it is out of the box, or maybe can we get those data at the same time? Be careful with getting that data. Remember, in concurrent, you cannot work on the same data sources and the same variables because the order of execution is unknown. They are taking whatever they want first. So think about chasing that data. Another part is use reusable code, use components, use named formulas, use user-defined function. Reuse as much as possible, if possible. Another thing is limit size of the collection is what we get our data, right? If we get data, think if we need everything. Filter that, limit amount of columns. And something that we haven't talked also, unfortunately, but this is bulk batch. So this is saving few records at the same time. This is also shown and provided by Chris and Jon on the previous community meetup, right? Think about how many actions you can do at the same time. Do you have to go for all to provide 10 do you have to go one after another to provide 10 updates to 10 records? Maybe you can just push 10 changes at the same time. So this is also something you need to consider in your application. And for the end, I have the QR code for you again. If you haven't added me on LinkedIn, you have the possibility to do this right now. You can ask a question if you're willing to stay anonymous on this call and do this via LinkedIn. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
If
you
there
very
is,
much.
if there are any questions or comments, I'm available for you. I just need to take a drink. A lot of talk. Woohoo!
Yes.
So, any questions, dear participants? I can see someone raise a